Special program on the federal. Every year during festive season, when winter starts settling in the northern parts of India, Delhi and its neighboring areas face concerns about the air quality. Diwali, the festival of lights, become a major marker of that concern as air pollution levels that start gradually going up spikes immediately after the festival. This year is no exception. Most areas of Delhi and NCR region reported severe plus or air quality index or AQI showing a reading over 450. This is likely to continue till at least January, making Delhi one of the most dangerous places to live on earth, especially for children, elderly, and those with underlying health conditions. To discuss this and more, I'm joined by an eminent panel of experts. I have with me Dr. Beg, Chair and Founder Director of SAFAR, which monitors air pollution in India. I'm joined by Soumya Sarkar, a senior journalist who has been passionately following environment-related issues for decades. I'll also be soon joined by Dr. Rajesh Chawla, senior consultant at Indraprastha Apollo Hospital in Delhi. Welcome, gentlemen, to the show. I go straight to Dr. Beg. Now, we are now familiar with India's capital turning into a toxic chamber every year during the winter months. My question is very basic. AQI is now an household term in Delhi and several other regions now, neighboring Delhi. Last year, we heard in some areas the reading was 999, 999, whereas the meters only record 450 plus as severe. What do we make of this? Are the pollution levels being captured in line with global norms? And also, are we actually seeing the pollution what it is, or there is something more to it?
Yes, you ask a very pertinent question. Certainly, there is something more to this. There are two issues. Number one is that in a air quality monitors, normally you can always put a lower lower limit as well as upper limit. Earlier time, the CPCB and other agencies used to purchase air quality monitors where they used to put in a specification that it can measure up to 1000 microgram per meter cube of PM 2.5, PM10, something like that. And then they used to keep. But then that was in older norms. Now it is doing anything. For example, in desert, it can go to PM10 to 4,500 microgram per meter cube. But it seems that when it comes to 999, that means that CAPE 1000 is set in the machine. And the last reading it can show is 999 because it cannot touch 1000. Whereas I think this year I can see that in many of the stations in DPCC and other, you can see the reading in the midnight last 1700, 1800 or something. So probably that cap is now in majority of the stations is taken away.
Okay. I'll come back to this. We'll discuss more. Before that, I'm very keen to hear to Dr. Chawla. You heard about, you just now heard that 999 is what are the meters can generally measure. I would like to explain how does this, PM 2.5 or the particulate matter, how it would get into the lungs, how it would pierce the lungs. If we are to see the, how does, what is the impact it has on a normal lung of a normal person? I'm not even talking about those with some underlying diseases or children or elderly. I'm not even talking about those groups. What is the kind of impact it has on a normal person?
The pollutants, it is the PM 2.5 micro and the PM10. And there are a lot of gases like oxides of sulfur, nitric oxide, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, ozone. So these are the predominant constituents of the air pollution. PM 2.5 is very important because it's a carcinogenic. These are the particles which are a dust particle. They contain a lot of materials in them, and which can result in COPD. It can aggravate stroke. It is even can result in a. I mean, it can aggravate even the coronary artery disease. So it has a lot of impact on the body. When a particle goes in, 2.5 will go to the periphery of the lung. The body tries to fight it out, but when the large amount goes in, it has an impact. It causes inflammation, and over the years in the bronchi, many of these people do get chronic obstructive lung disease. And for people who are already suffering from diseases, it brings the acute attack in them. I mean, their symptoms get aggravated, they get spasm, there is increase in secretions. So, and particularly this is important in chronic obstructive lung disease, bronchial asthma, interstitial lung disease. When these people are exposed, and even the coronary artery disease people, when they're exposed, it does aggravate, and it brings out what is we call it a acute exacerbation of their disease. That means they get an acute attack when they have to approach a doctor, and the amount of medications have to be increased. So this is broadly the impact of pollution on this. But PM 2.5 is one of the most important constituents of the air pollution.
Okay. Do we see in this particular season, it's starting from mid-October now, perhaps it up to January end, I mean, unless there is some kind of a rain settles in. Do you see a spike in hospital, patients arriving in both in OPD, admissions, and also, chronic cases? What kind of impact you see on the medical infrastructure?
There is a 20% increase in the patients, particularly who are suffering from respiratory illnesses, because you see this point of time in Delhi and around, there is very less movement of air. The humidity is low, the air is dry, and a lot of pollutants come from the neighboring states because of the Parali and others. So there is air which is polluted in this particular season. You will find wherever you go there, you don't find pollution. Like in Mumbai, because the number of vehicles are not less, but because the wind keeps on moving, so you don't get the concentrated pollutants in particular part of the city. But in Delhi, there is hardly any air movement during this. As the winter sets in, there'll be smog, and you will find a lot of people who are suffering from chronic obstructive lung disease, particularly children and the older people. They get the symptoms, they get increased, and even the simple viral infection takes much longer to get uh, cured. And the one of the important thing which we've noticed is the cough doesn't get better faster. Like normally the cough which will get better in 2 3 days, in during that season it takes much longer to get better. This is another thing which we have noticed in last few years, that respiratory symptoms take much longer. You feel tired in the evening because everyone is exposed. People think that I'm not getting any effect, but these are the effect, because the effect of the air pollution is visible after many years of exposure. It may not be visible immediately.
Yeah. Okay, like you said, the many years of exposure gets affect in many ways. But some of these issues, how much are these reversible and how much of these are irreversible? Because now
You're
pollution in Delhi earlier was only about 3 months, 4 months. Now it seems to be extending almost into a year now. I mean, more than 6 months. What kind of long-term impacts it has on a lung and people's efficiency, health efficiency? Hello? Dr. Chawla, can you hear me? Hello. Uh, Hello. Can you hear me? Okay, I think we seem to be having some problem with the communication. I'll go to Soumya. Soumya, let's now revisit the basic question. We all know this. This is an yearly phenomena. Every year it happens. Various reasons are given. We haven't even now seen the other, layer to be added to this. One, we know that Diwali is, a particular spike happens. After that, we have to see, the parali being burned in some of the neighboring districts. That will further accentuate the situation. And you, as a doctor was explaining earlier, also the weather conditions in north, which wind sweeping from Thar Desert, pushing the air in this direction, and the smog settling in. There are a whole lot of problems, and you have been looking at it for a very long time now. For nearly, this has been happening for over a decade now. What do you see? Is it situation worsening from year to year, or what is it you see?
Well, there are a couple of things that should be mentioned. Is that a lot of the blame in the media and in popular discourse goes to the stubble burning in our bread basket. The rice crop, and the wheat has to be planted, and the rice crop, the stubble is burned by farmers in Punjab, Haryana, and Western UP. But as Professor Beg will also support me on this, is that that is only 1%, one part of the story. The most important part that I have come to know over the years is meteorological. In the Indo-Gangetic plains, you cannot but help certain conditions during winter, which will lead to accumulation of pollutants in the air. It will not clear very easily. So that is a climatic weather condition that we have no control over. The things that we have control over is emissions from vehicles, dust from construction, industrial emissions, and of course the yearly burning of crackers throughout the Gangetic Plain. It's not just Delhi, but also the air is like poisonous in Kanpur, in Lucknow, in Calcutta. Any city that you see is full of pollutants the day after Diwali, and it remains for a long time because of the meteorological reasons. Now, from what I have seen, I have lived in Delhi for more than 35 years now, and the apart from the other reasons, industrial pollution, industrial emissions, and vehicular emissions, which are the largest parts, constituents of our air pollution problem. The thing that aggravates it the most is Diwali firecrackers, and the scale of festivities, of burning firecrackers. Festivities also means, community gatherings, people going to each other's house. I'm not talking about that, just the firecrackers part of it. The scale of that has risen exponentially. It is unimaginable even 15 years ago. The kind of firecrackers that are being burned that we see today, despite repeated interventions by the judiciary and the highest court of our land, and by administrative measures, public awareness campaigns saying that please don't do this, please don't do that. It has not stopped, and every year, despite the figures of production are very unreliable because it's mostly an informal industry, but anecdotal evidence, you just go for a drive for an hour or so between 8 to 9, you will see for yourself that by year the burning of firecrackers is increasing exponentially. It is impractical to say that we can immediately reduce air pollution during winter months in Delhi. But what we can do is that stop these firecrackers, stop aggravating the problem, stop intensifying the problem. We already have a problem for which solutions are very complex. You cannot overnight reduce vehicular emissions. You cannot overnight shut down industries. You cannot overnight stop construction. But what you can do is that you can stop doing things that worsens the problem or aggravates the problem. Burning of firecrackers during Diwali is certainly a problem, a issue that can be tackled by just
Right.
stop doing it.
Right. Soumya, I'll come back to it because there is a question lingering. When I come to the last round, I'll come to that. But before that, I want to go to Dr. Beg. See, he did indicate what are the causes of the pollution. According to the CS Center for Science and Environment Study of October-November 2024, vehicular emissions cause 51.5% pollution. Neighboring districts about 34.9. I'm sure this is when they say neighboring, could be I don't know what the causes are. Farm fires 8.1%, dust 3.7%. You see, the thing here is these are found to be the main causes, and then like Soumya was saying that meteorological cause is also a very, very significant one. So when you know these causes and these are constantly happening year after year, what is that you see could be done now to improve the situation? Because we have been seeing it, have been having a lot of discussion on this, and this seems to be going in an endless cycle. What do you think is the possibility now?
See, I will address this question in a very different. See, the point is, you need to have a strategy first to address the problem. Now, the very first thing which is happening now, there is a lot of gap between a scientist and the implementers. And then I think individually they are all doing great job, but then when it comes to harmonization, but anyway, those are the different practical things. But coming to the real aspect is that we need to use the airshed approach. Airshed approach normally do not see the political or administrative boundaries because the air pollution do not respect those boundaries. But for the sake of easiness of implementation, we find that it has to be restricted to district or states or those kind of a thing, which we need to come out of this problem. Number one. This is one of the reasons, very clear examples that in Delhi, there is a lot of measures which is being done specifically during grape and all, but we hardly see any of the changes because the clear that because we are not working on airshed. There are some parts of the 7 districts, 7 states of Delhi which are involved in that. They are doing whereas curbs are only for let's say about 20 to 30% of the total airshed area. And we do not see. So unless we see the total, those kind of thing, we don't see. But anyway, these are something, let us come to the real crux of the issue. 2 things I would like to make it very clear that the major source of pollution is the emissions. Weather do not create the problem, whether only redistribute or maneuver the pollution, which is available district. So that has to be very clear about it, that it can worsen, one place, some great, lot of pollution is there, it can dump it somewhere else. But it does not create the problem. It only does this kind of thing. Now the sources are what? Transport sector, fossil fuel emission, biofuel emission, dust, industrial emission, then power sector. That is all. And remaining all others are there. In that, as you rightly said, it is a little very complicated things what you talked about, but then I will make it more simplified for you. The 40% contribution comes from the transport sector. Remaining something like about 15% comes from the biofuel usage of any fuel in the residential slum areas other than the LPG. Then the dust is one of those. Then industries very less, and then power plants is anyway now gone to the zero because it is all shifted out of daily limits. So these are, so the major thing comes out to be about 40%, and this is something which is increasing year by year. Because even if you increase the technology to BS3 to 4 or 5, the rapid increase in number of vehicles of the diesel and petrol, they are rapidly increasing. That is not even offsetting, but superseding the emission norms. And moreover, this is also misnorm that today we have announced that it should be BS6, and then we expect that all the vehicles are converted to BS6. No, BS6 impact will take 5 years to get effective because still 99% of the vehicles, slowly the sale will pick up. Then all those things will be there. Now, this year, which I would like to tell you that weather-wise condition was the best in, let's say, for last 1 decade because of the following reasons. As far as meteorology is concerned, early monsoon withdrawal, so a meteorological twist that favors clean air, because after the monsoon withdrawal, 1 or 2 weeks are very slow winds, which is happening. Then there is a El Nino southern oscillation. There is a shift with a neutral condition, which helps North India air quality because winds tend to hit the. Now the other good thing from Delhi point of view is happen in terms of environment is that Punjab and Haryana, because of the flood in Punjab and Haryana, the harvesting is not yet started. The peak has not yet come. There is a very negative effects of that. I'll come to that. And because of that, in fact, this is the first time I have seen in last couple of years that the contribution of parali was almost negligible this year in air quality this Diwali. So that is a very rare respite. And then the La Nina delayed the harvesting and potential. Now the point is that this particular thing has delayed the harvesting. Now we have a very short window for cleaning months only. By the way, this parali is only for 45 days problem. 45 days, even less than that. This time it has reduced to 30 days because for the Rabi fasal we have to sow. So now farmers have got a window. Instead of 2 months, it is less than even around 1 month. Now what the poor fellow will do? He has to do the cheapest possible method. And in all likelihood, the time which we are going to see in November and December is going to be really very, very challenging. So this sowing has to happen in December, and this has to happen. So this is something which is a looming. So the good days, as far as weather was concerned, they are almost getting over, but they are offset by the rampant usage of the firecrackers. I should mention here that the green fire, so-called eco-friendly green firecrackers, they still emit 60 to 70% emission as compared to 20. So it's about 30 to 40%.
I'll come to that. I will come to that. We'll discuss, both Supreme Court's decision and the green cracker. But then what you said is, from what you said, it's alarming. You are suggesting that the worst is yet to come. What happened this time was the rains were very good, and therefore the situation started getting only bad at the end of October, last week of October, and also because since the agriculture hasn't kicked in because of the floods there, and the Rabi crop, the very short window now, instead of 45 days now it will be 30 days, which means now you're saying that the impact is going to be far more severe in Delhi during months of December and January. Maybe it will spill over. That's what you're saying.
Spill over because now the cooler temperature is going to be much more than what it used to be in October when they used to. So cooler temperature means more stagnation conditions with this parali.
Right. I'll come to Dr. Chawla. You see, Dr. Chawla, you gave a very good this thing of what are the possible harms it might. If you could just explain what are the kind of long-term impact that may have on people who have been living in Delhi for a very long time. One of the things which I read was it actually shortens your lifespan. But then, what are the other
No,
long-term impacts that might happen?
they say that probably a person who's staying in Delhi, his life is shortened by 7 years. That is what has been said. But because one is exposed over the years. So one of the disease which we've seen and which has relation direct with the smoking, the air pollution is the COPD. In addition to smoking is another very important risk factor for chronic obstructive lung disease. That is number one. And there are people who will have varying kind of symptoms. As I said, chronic cough, which is not going, the respiratory symptoms not getting uh, resolved, but COPD is one. Then people also, the chances of coronary artery disease getting worse. Similarly, the people getting more strokes. You see, it is very difficult to find out the direct relation with these because all these diseases have multiple factors which cause these diseases. But respiratory illnesses, all respiratory illnesses, whether it's an asthma, whether it's the COPD, the lung cancer, there are increased cases seen in the city of Delhi and around in NCR. You see a lot of these cases. And the other thing which I said earlier also that these people take much longer to get well. If they get a viral infection in another city, they get better in 2 days. Here it takes much longer. And you will come across people whose cough is there for weeks together and then it gets better. This is seen much more often in these weathers. And there are a lot of long term impacts on every system of the body. Because you see, unless we do a longitudinal study and observe and compare with another area, it is very difficult. There may be many other damages which it is causing to our body, but because respiratory is direct, so we know it definitely is affecting the respiratory system.
Doesn't body start? I mean, to adopt to some of these issues. Is there no possibility of the constant
No,
pollution
one
affecting
has
the?
no option. If you are sitting in Delhi, I mean, you're staying in Delhi, you have to tolerate this kind of pollution. And it becomes it is not that you become tolerant to pollution. It is not. The dirt is a dirt. When it goes in, the body has to respond. The more you are exposed, the more impact it will have on your body. A lot of people we've seen that during this season they go to another city. People who get a lot of symptoms, and then symptoms are much less when they stay there. So if you are breathing 12 times a minute and you're breathing day in and day out, and you are taking the polluted air inside, it will have an impact. And there are many health effects which are known, many of them which we don't know. And as the time passes, we will know that these are also related to air pollution. But the efficiency which I have seen when I visit another city, my efficiency is much more during winters than when I'm staying in Delhi. This is an observation which I have noticed in last many years.
Right. One more question here with you specific. What's the difference between a non-smoking and a smoking person? Earlier, it was perhaps if you had to take away pollution, perhaps it was 95% versus 5%. That there is a chance that somebody who constantly smokes may get some, pulmonary disease or even worse, cancer. 95%, 5%. Now it is apparently 50-50. Whether you smoke or not, you are smoking more than 50 cigarettes a day if you happen to be in Delhi. And therefore, you have chances of these dreaded diseases happening to you.
Correct. And that's absolutely correct because everyone is a smoker in the city of Delhi. And if you smoke
In
over
general.
and above this, naturally the chances of lung cancer are going to be much more. And the not only lung cancer, they have even seen the breast cancer, the vascular disease are much more in people who are exposed to air pollution.
Right. One last question, doctor. People come to you as a last resort because they suffer all those things, and it is for you to fix those, because ultimately it falls on your lap to correct those things which perhaps not in your hands, because outside factors like not enough being done by political class or not being done by an administration. How do you see this? Is there a sense of frustration, or is a sense of this thing feeling within you that I'm trying to constantly cure these, but then these are getting endemic and there is no end to this?
No, actually, we don't feel, because my job is I'm a respiratory physician. So whatever there, we try to fix it, but it's becoming difficult to fix many a times, because it's like you are hitting from one side and you are putting some ointment on the other side. So you have to stop the hit. You have to stop the air pollution. So it is becoming difficult, because I remember 35 years ago, it was much easier to treat the respiratory infections, and now it is much more difficult now to treat these patients. The amount of medication, we understand the disease is better, the amount of drugs available are also very large, but it is even more difficult to treat these patients. So challenge almost is remaining the same, because uh, because of the person being exposed to this kind of environment.
Okay, thank you. Soumi, I will like to go to an important question. We have seen there are various causes, like construction is one, vehicular is another, agriculture, like it happens due to parali. Then you have meteorological, like earlier it was explained, dust, industrial, whole lot of problems are there which causes this whole, converts Delhi into a gas chamber. But then there is perhaps another one in discussion now, the cultural religious angle. The Diwali is a sentimental issue now. How do you see that this new layer being added to the existing controversies?
Well, if it becomes a issue of religious tradition, then it is very difficult to say anything in India right now, because we have a surge of religious sentiment. People get offended very easily on religion, and both the administration and the judiciary seem to are more agreeable to such offense, entertaining such offense. But Diwali, uh, I am not an historian. I can't tell you that how long this has been going on. But as a Indian who has lived in various cities, I have been mostly in Delhi. I have spent my student life in Calcutta. I have spent my childhood in Bihar. We have never, barring for the last 10, 15 years, seen such a huge, fascination, I would say, or the huge craving to of ostentatious display of firecrackers. It's not, Diwali also meant community meetings. It also meant community gatherings. It also meant going to each other houses and having gujia. This all things were there. People used to light small lamps, oil lamps, etc. Even candles. Those things have taken a backseat, and the entire focus is on bursting firecrackers. Now, if somebody tells me that this is a religious stricture, that is incorrect. That is not correct at all. Because people were religious 25 years ago as well, 30 years ago. Religious people were religious and irreligious people were religious. So that hasn't changed so much. What has changed is that finding excuses to do ostentatious religious outpouring. So you burn more firecrackers, you are more religious. You go on pilgrimages, you are more religious. It was not necessary for us to go on pilgrimages to show our religiosity. So these things is increasing. My point is not that, if people want to follow what they perceive as their religious tradition, they are free to do so. There is nobody should uh, be allowed to stop them. But
Yeah.
when it becomes a matter of public health, when it becomes a matter of disrupting daily life, then obviously the administration and the authorities have to take a stand. You cannot say that this is my religious tradition, that is why your child has to cough all throughout the year and have ill health. You cannot demand that.
Yeah, Soumya,
If it
their
is
own
a
children.
public health
It's not
hazard,
just
then
other
it has to
children.
be dealt with that way.
Correct. It's not their other children, even their own children. Now, Professor Gufran, I have a question for you. In 2015, three infants went to the court through their father. They are the one who first petitioned. They said, please give us a place where we can breathe properly. That was a petition. And then subsequently, many things happened. Next year in 2016, Delhi, Pollution Control Board exempted, religious functions. And then 2017, arsenic, lead, mercury, lithium. They were, those who used these elements in their crackers, their licenses were suspended. 2018, there was a judgment which said that green crackers can be allowed, and the experiment started with that. Uh, then 2020, NGT imposed, that is, Green Tribunal imposed a blanket ban, and then it became a seasonal ban. Then later, 24, again a blanket ban throughout the year. Now in 2025, now we are hearing that on an experimental basis, the court has now allowed the green crackers could be used, which you're trying to explain earlier. What is a green cracker means? It still causes 60 to 70% pollution. Also, the decibel levels may be now 120. Do you think is this direction the way you're going? Because it's in the courts for over a decade now. How do you see this?
See, the point here is that we should understand, in fact, the name green crackers, it is a kind of a misleading. It gives still not the majority, not the minority, but the majority of the 60 to 70% of the emissions which any traditional firecrackers will give. 2, 3 advantages are there. One is that noise is less. Another one is some of the toxic materials which causes much more diseases, they are not there. But then some of the things like barium or all those are still there because you need a spark, all those. So this is one. Now we need to understand the psychology here. Once they are banned, then there are illegal and from neighboring areas and states that bring it, but still there is a curb. If it is implemented in a real spirit, there is a curb. There is something which even if with the 100%, there is a lot of curbs are there. Now, what has happened this time is it is an open market for the green crackers. Now, green crackers and normal crackers is a difference of 30 to 40%. So, if 40% increase in the green crackers are there as compared to what it used to be, we are back to the square. And it will not be a 40%, it will be much more than that because it's in the open market. Now, what is going on, people keep telling and other things, I don't want to get into this, but how much stringently the kind of conditions Supreme Court is applied, and obviously the forces go to each and every house and do that. So it is a matter of public discourse that we need to inculcate the feeling of environmental awareness, environmental benefits to not only you, to your children and the generations to come. So then, if you ask me that is this green crackers or even more green crackers is a lasting solution, my answer is very clearly big no. Because how much better you can do it? It is a 60 to 70%. You can go up to 50%, 40%. is exactly as the same thing is telling that from diesel you come to the petrol to your CNG, but still you are burning something and then pollution emissions are coming. So the EV is something which you need to go because it doesn't have a, but then there are other challenges, there is a coming. So similar kind of a thing, it is there in this also. How to deal with this kind of a situation, it is an open question,
Right.
but obviously it's not a lasting solution.
Thank you. Thank you very much. One last question to everyone, just if you can answer quickly. You know, we seem to be constantly talking about these issues, which seems to be all temporary fixes, whereas the problem seems to be remaining a permanent one. Quickly, do you see any hope? I'm going to ask one by one. Dr. Gufran, do you see any hope?
I see. I am very clear about one aspect. Unless you are attacking the problem, root cause of the problem of the emissions and long-term strategies, airshed-based strategies, the problem is not going to be solved in a shorter time. Now there are quick fixes which are keep coming. We have spent a lot of money in the smoke towers and all, and you have been seeing what is the fate of the smoke towers now. What it is as good as telling you that put a air condition in an open field and expect a cooling in a scorching heat. Similarly, this is the same thing as this. Similarly, the guns and all those are the water guns and all those are there. And then these days, the artificial rain thing is going to come. But one good thing, which caveat, which has come very nicely, that let India Meteorological Department tell that weather-wise the condition is favorable. What is favorable conditions? That you should have to have a seeding clouds, which is a CCNs of different, which can only you can be seed with the sulfur iodide or something which can rain. Forget about the possibility and success and other things. And this is the time when you really require it. Those clouds are never there. Almost nil. It's a 10 to 5% probability in November, December. So if that will not happen, IMD will be candid. It may not tell that weather is condition, and then the cloud seeding may not see the day of the light. This is what the situation. Otherwise, there should have been a cloud seeding by this time.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
these
Thank you. Thank you very much.
those are the really problematic questions we need to deal. There is no shortcuts. There is no quick fix. It has to be long-term strategy, airshed-based strategy. We need to work in tandem, all the state government, this, without looking at political affiliations, and then political concession has to be doing that.
Okay, thank you. Soumya, one quick word. Do you see any hope after all this? Very quickly.
Well, in the short term, no. The problem is going to get worse, unfortunately. But as Professor Beg said, if we adopt a airshed approach, as a policy imperative, and if we have bipartisan support, across the political spectrum, only then we can move forward. Unless these two things come together, the airshed approach and a multi-party agreement on improving the pollution situation and see it as a threat to public health, things will not improve either in the short term or in the medium.
Okay. Thank you so much. I hope that soon, if not now, at least in the coming years, there will be some political, desire or the willingness to sort out this problem. Thank you very much for a nice discussion. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.